If you guys enjoy what I do, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe. It really helps the channel and it's free and easy to do. Before we get started with today's video, I have an announcement to make. After years of telling other people's stories, I finally released one of my own. My novel Eternal Reign is available now in both ebook and paperback format for those of you who are like me and prefer to collect physical media. You can grab a copy right now on Amazon through the link in the description of this video. And now back to our regularly scheduled program. In the city of Ul'dah, the Warrior of Light runs across a guy who claims to have seen an old man from the Far East show up at the arena and offer to fight anyone who thinks they can beat him. Then he proceeded to thoroughly beat each and every person who tried with some seriously impressive swordsmanship. The man claims to be a samurai, and of course the Warrior of Light is eager to see how well she stacks up against him, especially since there's been some mention of a treasure if you can beat him. The only catch is you have to fight him with the same weapon that he uses. Not like that'll stop you. When you walk up, the old man can sense that you're a strong fighter and may be exactly what he's looking for. He introduces himself as Musosai, and he is indeed a samurai from Hingashi. He lets you borrow a katana and a soul crystal so you can absorb the memories of the last samurai who held the stone. That way you'll at least know which end of the sword you're supposed to use on him. With that done, the two of you step into the arena, but before you can duel, a gladiator by the name of Barold, who the old man already beat, comes running into the arena wanting a rematch, this time using his own weapon. No one likes the guy, mainly because he's a sore loser. You can't agree to the rules of a contest, then claim the other guy cheated because you weren't as good as he was. Showing off a little bit, Musosai cuts Barold's blade in half, which makes the idiot run away and let you get back to your duel. You're obviously no match for the man, not fighting with the unfamiliar weapon, but he is impressed with how fast you start to catch on, and he declares you the victor. He lets you know that the treasure he was offering was training in the ways of the samurai, a very valuable gift indeed. Before you can even give your answer, Barold comes back, quite unhappy to hear that he got humiliated and there wasn't even any money involved. Not like he could have won it anyway, something Musosai points out, which is why the man came back with friends this time. Musosai still won't fight him. Instead, he sends his new pupil to do it. After seeing you in action, he's positive that you can take them all with no problems. After you pummel his allies with the announcer narrating the fight, Barold charges Musosai only to get beaten without even making the man draw his sword. He apologizes for making you fight the gladiators, but it did let him know that you would make an incredible student. He'd been searching everywhere for someone worthy of his knowledge, and he couldn't find anyone in his homeland, so he left. They were too traditional there, and it limited them, so he decided to come to Eorzea, a place he mispronounces as Air's Ear, which, now that I say it out loud, isn't really that far off. He went straight to the place where the best fighters were supposed to be, and after a while, he got lucky and found you. He just hopes you accept his training, which of course you do. Now that you're officially his student, he explains a few things to you about his homeland. A long time ago, Hingashi went through a bad time called the Age of Blood, where a lot of different groups fought for dominion over the land. That was when people took up the katana and the samurai were born. When the land was unified under one banner and peace finally came to the area, the regular citizens put away their weapons, and the remaining samurai took on the task of keeping the peace. Now the samurai hunt down criminals to bring them to justice so the Age of Blood never comes back. They're like the Justice League, only their justice involves poking holes in people with sharp objects. Now that you're on the path to becoming a samurai, Musosai will take you around Eorzea fighting evildoers as a part of your training. So you literally just became the sidekick to a vigilante master of martial arts. Unfortunately, that makes you Robin, but beggars can't be choosers. So the two of you get ready to hunt down some bad guys in Ul'dah when Mobozigo, the Lalafell who had been announcing your fight in the arena, shows up. He managed to make a lot of money off of the fight, and now he wants to follow the two of you around because he believes that there's a chance you'll help him make even more money. But he's not planning on being useless. If you want to hunt bad guys, he has a lot of contacts who can help you track down some villains, which will be useful since Musosai doesn't know Eorzea at all, and the Warrior of Light is practically a mute, so she won't really be able to give any good directions. Momo and Musosai have already worked together. Musosai saved his life from some bandits he'd been trying to recruit to fight in the arena. Then Momo had guided him to Ul'dah, so there are no objections to him coming, so he gets to work on finding some bad guys, while you get more familiar with your new weapon. With Ul'dah being a haven for all things degenerate, it doesn't take long for Musosai to pick a target. There's a moneylender who hunts poor people to scam. He charges crazy rates for his loans, then when people can't pay, he makes them into slaves. And with all of the poor people living in the area, he has plenty of targets. You talk to the people at Stone's Throw who know exactly who the guy is you're looking for, and he's far worse of a person than even Musosai thought. A young woman borrowed some money for her father's medicine, and even though she's paying her bill on time, he keeps increasing what she owes so he can sell her to one of his clients. Lucky for you, and not so lucky for him, the moneylender shows up to take the girl while you're standing there. Of course, you get ready to murder the creep, but Musosai stops you. If you fought right there, you could have made things worse since technically he is conducting semi-legal business. He never forced people to borrow money from him or agree to his terms. So you need to wait for the right time to strike, especially since the man's not working alone. Instead of stabbing him, you follow as he takes the girl. He meets up with some members of the Brass Blades who are apparently taking the woman as payment to let Philip conduct his business without any legal ramifications. Now that is definitely illegal. Seeing how the corrupt guards are a part of this scheme, it's time for you to step in. You take down the guards, leaving only their leader alive, and you tie him and Philip up while Momozigo goes to get some more of the Blades, ones who have been trying to link Philip's money lending to one of their own officers. What you've done is saved them a lot of legwork, so at the end of the day, the girl is happy, and the Brass Blades are happy. Not bad for your first mission as a samurai. Now that you've done some good in Ul'dah, Musosai wants to go somewhere else, so your next stop is Limsa Lominsa, a place that is definitely full of criminals. Honestly, the only city that really isn't is Gridania. The other city-states have a whole lot of problems. It doesn't take long for Musosai to find a big problem in the city. There's a serial killer in the area who uses a really sharp sword, a lot like the ones you carry, which made the Yellow Jackets bring Muso in for questioning. Since he has a pretty solid alibi, like only just arriving in the city that day for the first time in his life, it doesn't take long for him to be released. Since he and Momo offered to help with the investigation, the guards let them see the bodies, and the victims were definitely killed by a katana. The fact that the murderer is using a samurai's weapon is something that Musosai will not tolerate, so he wants to hunt down the killer, which means it's detective time. After chatting with a few people, you find that the victims have nothing in common except for the fact that they disappeared near the docks, so the killer may just be grabbing whoever passes by his hunting ground at a convenient time, which makes him more dangerous, but easier to catch in a trap, if you use the right bait. And since anyone would be stupid to try to attack anyone as well armed as you and Musosai, the lucky decoy is Momozigo. The plan works. Momo walks along the dock at night, and a Lalafell dressed like a ninja comes at him with a katana. Momo screams, making the other Lalafell run off, but not before Musosai gets to see the sword. He recognizes it. A rich merchant had gone to Kugana and bought a unique katana that he wanted delivered to his ship. It was the same one the killer held, and the merchant was said to be a Lalafell, although Musosai mispronounces that and calls him a Laughabell. Momo immediately thinks of Gegaruju since he's a rich Lalafell who likes exotic things, but while he's weird and a crook, he's definitely not a murderer. Still, he's your only lead, so you go to see him. Of course, he's not the killer, but he has an idea who it could be. There's a Lalafellan merchant named Garumi Boralumi, who even Gegaruju thinks spends too much money. But the guy is obsessed with anything from the Far East, and he's collected a lot of katanas. Recently, Garumi was showing off one of his weapons and talking about how he wanted to see what it was like to stab someone with it. Nobody believed him, but he apparently was serious. He lives on a ship which is docked nearby, but it might not be for long. It's not going to be easy to sneak on a ship, but fortunately Gegaruju has an invitation to go to a banquet on board that he gives to you so you can deal with the psycho. The guy's a rival businessman, so it's not like he's doing this out of the goodness of his heart. Gegaruju is still a jerk, even if he is sometimes useful. You make it onto the ship without any problem since Momo disguises himself as Gegaruju before using the invitation. Of course, as soon as you get close to Garumi, he realizes that Momo isn't Gegaruju, but the person he had been about to stab a few nights back. He has no problem admitting what he's done, and even when Musosai says that he's not going to try to bring Garumi in alive, the Lalafell doesn't flinch. He decides to turn the whole thing into a show for his party guests. So you all head on to the deck where he has a bodyguard with a katana who claims that all it takes to be a samurai is to use that weapon. Musosai wants to teach him the error of his ways, but first you have to deal with his hired ninja henchman. Musosai uses this as another training opportunity, and after you take down a few of his guards, Garumi sends his pet monster after you. So your master steps in and one-shots all the remaining shinobi while you deal with the monster. Then you get to take down the fake samurai while Muso comments on how bad the guy is at fighting. You cut him down and chase after Garumi. The man has heard of Musosai, and now that he knows who he is, he understands why his guards lost, but he stupidly thinks that he can fight you and gets executed for his trouble. While he's glad you dealt with the murderer, Musosai isn't all that pleased with how weak your opponents were. Samurai need to fight people on their skill level to grow, and the frauds you dealt with won't do much for your growth. So it's off to somewhere else while Gegaruju cleans up the mess you made. This time you're headed to Gridania, although Momo's ego seems a bit reluctant to want to go there. When you reach the forest city, Momo wanders off, and when he doesn't come back, you and Muso look around for him only to find out that he had a criminal record in the city and was arrested as soon as they saw him. He hadn't done anything major, so they weren't all that focused on him, so he took the opportunity to run away. Last they saw him, he was headed toward Ixal territory in the North Shroud. The guards don't plan on chasing him out there, so if you want to find him before he gets dead, you'd better hurry. You save him from a few of the members of the Beast Tribe who were going to do some horrible things to him, and now that he's safe, he tells you what happened. He was organizing a concert, but the singer bailed on him at the last minute. He had a big debt to pay, and no way of paying it, so he ran away with the money he made on the advanced ticket sales. Now he's scared that Musosai will kill him too, which the man acts like he's gonna do. But since Momo has been working hard to do the right thing since that day, killing him would ruin all the good he could possibly do if he kept going the way he has been. But he does need to pay all the people back and apologize before you all leave Gridania, which he happily runs off to do. All of the travel seems to be getting to Musosai since he's far from a young man, but he feels good that he's managed to accomplish his goal of finding a strong student near the end of his life. Although he does have one more goal left to accomplish, and it's the true reason he was in Eorzea. He is trying to track down a disgraced samurai named Kogarashi. He is the embodiment of evil, and while Musosai had a chance to take him down before, he failed. Kogarashi was even stronger than he is. But none of that's your problem, and instead of saying more, the two of you go to track down Momo, who has paid his debts and is now free to come and go in Gridania as he pleases. With that done, your merry band of do-gooders heads off to Ishgard. Ishgard's another city with a lot of problems, and it doesn't take long for Momo to hear some unsettling news. Apparently a couple threw themselves off of a cliff in the Western Highlands. They were both lowborn, but a young nobleman named Enfreint wanted the girl, and he stalked her until the couple decided to end their lives since they would never know peace otherwise. While the man's deeds would be worthy of punishment, you can't go around stabbing folks on rumors, so the three of you split up to see if the rumors are actually true. The more you find out, the less it seems like the deaths were suicides at all, but as you and Musosai discuss what you found, you hear Momo screaming in the distance for help. When you get to where you heard the scream, and Ellison lets you know that Momo was asking about the suicides when someone grabbed him and carried him off. With no more time to waste being subtle, you and Musosai go to confront Enfreint directly. The nobleman admits that he tried to make the couple break up, but they didn't kill themselves. Enfreint had brought the girl to his family's manor, and she had found out about some of his father's illegal business ventures. He had tried to make his dad let it go, but he wouldn't. He had some men take the couple out to the highlands and get rid of them. It broke Enfreint's heart because he really did love the girl. If his father's men took Momo to the same place, then they're on their way to the Black Iron Bridge right now. You save Momo from the mercenaries, but the strain starts to take an even greater toll on Musosai. In typical stubborn old man fashion, he shrugs off your concerns. Now that he's visited all of Eorzea's major cities, he just has to find Kogarashi and deal with him. Watching you grow during your travels has made him think that you may have grown strong enough to fight Kogarashi if you find him, which makes Muso proud that the kami helped him find a student who could help him reach his goal. But before you continue the hunt, you all head back to Ishgard. Momo thinks something is wrong, and he gets a doctor to look at Muso only to find out that he's very, very sick. He probably won't live for that much longer. Honestly, he shouldn't have even been strong enough to draw a sword, let alone do all of the traveling and fighting he's done. It makes Momo wonder just what did this Kogarashi do to make Musosai go to such lengths to put an end to him. Now, if any of you have ever met an old person, you should know that even if a doctor tells them what they should do, they probably won't listen. And Musosai is no different. He's supposed to stay in bed, but he leaves. You search the city for him, but he actually finds you first. He brought his own medicine, stuff that gives him his strength back for at least a little while, and while he's on his feet, he finally lets you know everything about Kogarashi and his crimes. The man is responsible for training a serial killer who took down a lot of Hingan leaders, and the way things work in his homeland puts the blame for the deeds on both the student and the master. He was ordered to take his own life, but instead he ran away to Eorzea. Leaving him alive despite what he caused is something that tarnishes the name of the samurai, so he has to be taken down. But Musashi has failed to do it on multiple occasions, but he thinks you can do it. You can beat Kogarashi. So as your final test, Musashi wants you to find him and bring him down. The man's been staying in Kurthus at a place called the Twin Fools, and as you head there, Musashi wants you to think on how horrible a person has to be to put their own life above honor and duty. When you reach the location, Musashi reveals to you that he's Kogarashi. He had a student who he took around in the same way that he did with you. They fought criminals together, but in the end his apprentice turned bad and he ran away instead of taking his own life when he was ordered to. He's tried to, time and time again, but he just can't go through with it. Since he couldn't do it himself, he decided to train someone until they were strong enough to bring him to justice. The Warrior of Light, of course, doesn't want to do that, but Musashi draws his sword, giving you no choice but to fight him or die. Even as a sick old man, his skills are top notch, but with him having to fight off his own illness and you, he's beaten. Now all that's left is for you to give him an honorable death, but Momozigo rushes in, having followed the two of you. He's shocked to see what you've done to Musashi, but he lets him know that it wasn't your fault and he welcomes the death. But as a samurai, like Musashi had done for Momo and Gridania, you use your authority to absolve him of his crimes, counting the deeds he's done to make up for them as a just penance. He's proud of the samurai you've become, and with that, he finally succumbs to his illness and passes on. The two of you take Musashi's body and bury him per his wishes, where he can face the western seas, so he could watch the sun head back to the east, to the homeland he knew that he would never see again. After burying Musashi, the Warrior of Light and Momozigo parted ways, but after a while you go to see how he's doing. Things have been going well, but a woman recently came by looking for Musashi, a woman who looked like a samurai. Momo couldn't bring himself to tell her that Musashi is dead, but since you were a student, he figured the news would be better coming from you anyway. She's out in front of the quicksand in Oda, and she's not going to be hard to spot in the very out-of-place clothing that she's wearing. You introduce yourself, and when she finds out you were Musashi's student, she's overjoyed until you tell her that the old man is gone. Her name is Makoto, and she's a member of the Sekisegumi, the police force in Kugane. She came to Eorzea to find Musashi, but since he's dead, she wants to pay her respects, so you take her to where he's buried. While Musashi was disgraced for not killing himself after his student Ugetsu had murdered some government officials, Makoto saw his leaving as a way of atoning by training a new student to bring him honor by bringing down his rogue student. Ugetsu isn't just out to murder people, he's a revolutionary who has a lot of samurai gathering behind him. They remained hidden for a while, but it's been said that he's reappeared in Kugane and is getting ready to attack. That's why Makoto had come for Musashi. She wanted him to help, but since he's gone, she'll have to go back alone. Not long after she returns to Kugane, she sends a letter to you, letting you know that the situation is way worse than she thought. Ugetsu's faction has been doing so much damage that the Sekisegumi are having a hard time fending them off. Since you train with Musashi, your help will be the only thing that could turn the tide of the battle. Momozigo thinks it's rather poetic that Musashi's first and last students are going to fight, because he knows that you're going to go help. He's right, of course, and so it's off to Kugane you go. When you reach the city and ask for Makoto, a member of the Sekisegumi lets you know that she was leading a mission to Sakazuki, where members of the Rogue Samurai's group were supposed to be meeting, but she should have been back by now, so since the soldier can't leave his post, he sends you to find out what happened to Makoto. When you find her, it's just in time to save her life. A Warrior of Light has some incredible timing, don't you think? Apparently the entire secret meeting was set up to lure them into a trap. Makoto's partner didn't survive, and she wouldn't have either if you wouldn't have showed up. Hingans live by a strict caste system where your status comes from your parents. Her partner's family had been poor, so he had moved to Kugane since it's more free than the other districts. He became a samurai so he could change the broken system of their nation, just like most of the other members of the Sekisegumi. None of them were raised as warriors, but they all took up the sword to make their nation better. Ugetsu and his allies want to change the world too, but they're willing to burn it to the ground first to get it. On the surface, that's a good idea. It's easier to dig up a weed-filled garden and just start over than it is to actually clean it out. But if the government of Hingashi falls, the different ruling lords will go to war and the Age of Blood will start over, which is why Ugetsu needs to be stopped. Back in Kugane, after Makoto gets you to agree to help, she decides to take you to their captain as long as you don't let him know that you're Musosai's student. Having the same teacher as the guy who's causing all of the trouble will make you a suspect, so it's best to keep that a secret. Only Shiden, the guy who sent you to find Makoto, knows who you are, but he's a little more open-minded than the others. He goes to get Captain Kongo, who is not in the least bit willing to trust you. Since you're a foreigner, you could be anything from a part of Ugetsu's group to an Imperial spy. But Shiden and Makoto vouch for you, so he decides to let you stick around until you prove you're untrustworthy. Then he'll kill you. His distrust doesn't come out of nowhere. The way they were ambushed on their last mission means it's likely that there's a spy in their group. To make matters worse, Tairo, one of the most influential men in the nation, decided to schedule a visit to Kugane, which means Ugetsu will likely try to kill him. The second Segumi will be out in force to ward off any attack, and they'd like your help when the time comes. Makoto has other duties to tend to, but she wants you to stay in the city so you'll be close if they need you. It's a good thing that you do, because when you go back to meet up with Makoto, she lets you know that the captain has apparently ended his own life to atone for his failure to catch Ugetsu. At least, that's what the letter he left by his body said. To make matters worse, Tairo is on his way, which has Kugane in so much chaos that they haven't even had time to perform the funeral rites for Kongo. Shiden is trying to keep everything together because Ugetsu is definitely going to tear it apart. Everyone's on high alert, and Makoto will be grateful if you join her on her patrols. While you search around for signs of anything suspicious, you find a charm that's covered in blood, one that was always on the captain's neck. Makoto would recognize it anywhere, but she has no idea how it got to the docks, which makes you question whether the captain killed himself at all, especially after Makoto admits that she didn't actually see his body. It could have been Ugetsu's people who actually got to him and faked the note to make it look like he did himself in. But if that's true, then the second Segumi definitely have an intruder in it. Knowing that, you and Makoto race off to let Shiden know that there needs to be more security around Tairo because the enemy is definitely already in the city. Tairo is supposed to be at the Thavnarian consulate, but he has a habit of sneaking off to the houses of pleasure when he's supposed to be working. Apparently he has a fondness for cat girls. So you race off to find him because Shiden shouldn't be too far away from him. When you find Shiden, he lets you know that he has it all under control and you can head back to your post. But Makoto has a question. When you walked up, Shiden had his sword out. However, there were no enemies around. So what was he doing? Since he's being questioned, he reveals the truth. He was the one who set Makoto up. He had hoped for the trap to kill the both of you, but he hadn't expected you to be so good with the sword. Makoto can't understand why he would turn on the captain like that, but Shiden had seen firsthand how horrible the nobility of Hingashi were. His parents were treated terribly, and when they spoke up about it, they were burned alive in front of a crowd of villagers. On that day, Shiden vowed to change the nation. That was why he became a samurai. But after he joined the second Segumi, he realized that they were nothing more than the enforcement arm of the nobility. They weren't bringing about justice. They weren't changing anything. But Ugetsu is different. He has a plan to bring real change, and Shiden plans on being a part of it. Makoto tries to plead with him, but her words can't negate his experiences, so there's no choice but to fight. However, if you fight where you are, someone innocent could get hurt, so Shiden leads you off to a secluded spot so you can settle things. Shiden's good, but it's 2 against 1, so he's outmatched, at least until his men arrive. Apparently, quite a few members of the second Segumi had sided with Ugetsu, far too many for the 2 of you to handle, but a very alive Captain Kongo shows up with his own men to even the odds and reveal that Shiden had been the one who tried to kill him. With the numbers even, you beat Shiden and cause his allies to retreat, but instead of letting you take him prisoner, he ends his own life. Having seen how you fought with Makoto, Kongo apologizes for how he acted when you first arrived. You helped more than you may have realized. Without you there, Shiden may have very well started the collapse of the entire nation. But Kongo does think it's ridiculous how anyone would have thought that he would have ended his life before dealing with Ugetsu and his army. Shiden had called Kongo to discuss something important at the docks, but when he got there, Shiden attacked him. The sneak attack hit his charm, which saved him from dying as he was knocked over into the sea. He used the opportunity to let them think he was dead so he could track down the other traitors, which led him to your fight with Shiden. Since that's all done, and Tairo is safe, you can go back to the barracks and plan your next move. Not all of the traitors were as dedicated to the cause as Shiden, where they would finish themselves off, so Kongo and Makoto are able to learn a bit about Ugetsu's plan from them. Shiden had been recruiting the people that he could and killing those who wouldn't join, while Ugetsu made plans from his base somewhere in Yangsha, so you still have a lot of ground to cover before you can find him. After searching through more of Shiden's things, Kongo found some letters from Ugetsu that mentioned some ruins out in Yangsha that could be his base of operations. But with Shiden's death, Ugetsu probably knows that you'll find his base soon. However, he can't run away because that'll make him look weak, so he's either going to wait for you to finally come to him, or attack you himself. If the man does come, Kongo believes that only the two of you would possibly be his equal in combat. Anyone else likely wouldn't stand a chance. So he will stay at the base in case Ugetsu attacks, while you and Makoto check for him in Yangsha. You search the area finding Ugetsu's henchman but no sign of him, which means he had gone to Kugane. You and Makoto rush back just in time to see a duel between Kongo and Ugetsu, one that Kongo loses. When he loses, Ugetsu sees Makoto and reveals something unexpected. Her name is actually Kagetsu, and she's his sister. That news is surprising to the other members of the Sekisegumi as well, but the Warrior of Light doesn't care about any of that, and she draws her sword to prepare for battle. Ugetsu can tell by your stance that you were Musosai's student, and the one who beat Shiden. He had once walked the same pointless path as you, and with your skills he thinks it's a shame that you're standing in the way of what needs to be done. But your interference only made him move things forward faster. He has a lot of people fighting for his cause, and the time for hiding in the shadows is over. It's time for his open war against the leaders of Hingashi to begin, and the first step was getting rid of the captain so the people of the Sekisegumi could decide for themselves whose cause was the right one to fight for. He even offers Makoto the chance to join him. She refuses, and I don't know whether or not I fully agree. If you believe the leaders of the nation are corrupt, which she does, and you're fighting to change things, which she is, then why would you think you could do that without bloodshed? People who are in power aren't going to change their ways out of empathy for the lower classes of people. Why would they without incentive? Violence isn't always the answer, but it is an answer, and it's an effective one. Ugetsu's words don't work on Makoto or many of the others, but he doesn't want to fight in the city. His issue is with the rulers, not the citizens, and he doesn't want them to get hurt. So he wants you all to meet him at the Isles of Beko, where your people can face off against his. But Makoto may not have many supporters now that people know that she's related to Ugetsu, which is bad. Since the captain's dead, she's now the leader of the Sekisegumi. When Ugetsu leaves to prepare for battle, Makoto lets you know that what he said was true. He is her brother, and her real name is Kagetsu. They were born into a samurai family, and her brother had always been a skilled swordsman even at a young age. They had a good relationship, and she was proud when he had been chosen to train under Musosai. But when he went off with the sword master, it was the last time she'd see him for a long time. When he came back, he was different. He'd gone from being a cheerful boy to an angry man who had a strong dislike for the great lords and for the state of the country. After that, he stopped training with Musosai and started teaching Makoto the sword. He had planned on waging war way back then and had wanted his sister prepared to fight and survive the battles that would come. Then he murdered a high-ranking official, and Makoto's family was executed as punishment. She barely escaped that fate, ran away to Kugane, changed her name to Makoto, and joined the Sekisegumi for the sole purpose of punishing her brother. She blames him for the death of her parents, but to be honest, the fact that the government murdered them as punishment for what their son did is proof that Ugetsu's right, and the government needs to be purged. But Makoto knows that she can't beat Ugetsu, and to make matters worse, her supporters are fading away. In their culture, your birth defines you, and once it was revealed that she was Ugetsu's blood, it'll be hard for them to follow the family member of their enemy. But she still plans on fighting, even if it means her death. Her dedication doesn't stop members of the Sekisegumi from abandoning the organization, and with so many gone, you don't even have the numbers to fight Ugetsu. If you can't get them back, then it's a lost cause. So you and Makoto go to gather up the soldiers so she can try to convince them to fight. They show up, and at first they don't want to listen, but when you reveal that Musosai had roamed the land under the name of Kogarashi, fighting criminals around the world, they realize that the man their nation had labeled a criminal was really a hero. But that doesn't change how they feel about Makoto. Very unexpectedly, Momozigo comes running up, and using his knowledge of Musosai, he tells them how he pretty much thought that the people of Hingashi's views on tradition makes them stupid. They worry so much about a person's birth that they don't worry about their worth. The fact that they think Makoto is bad because her brother is extremely stupid, since anyone with eyes can see that she's fighting against him. To make matters worse, All of the Sekisegumi are former farmers and peasants who fought to change how people looked at them, yet they're judging Makoto the same way they were judged. Hearing it out loud from someone that doesn't come up past their kneecaps makes them feel pretty stupid, and they all get ready to head to the Isles of Beko to do battle. Ugetsu is strong, but you prove to be the more capable of Musasai's students and you defeat him. The battle decided whose cause was the righteous one, and reluctantly Makoto strikes her brother down, ending the threat of Ugetsu and saving Hingashi. With the mission completed, Makoto is made the official captain of the Sekisegumi, and the true story of Musasai has been spread among the ranks, clearing the old man's name and changing the way the history books will talk about him from a villain to a legend. After fighting Sin Eaters on the first, the Warrior of Light comes back home to Kugane to check on Makoto. You arrive right when she's getting ready to head to Eorzea to see Musasai's grave and to let him know that Ugetsu's been dealt with. Since you're there, you decide to take the trip with her. That way you can see Momozigo too. When the two of you make it to Uda, Momozigo's busy setting up an event, so the two of you head off to the grave at the Silver Bazaar while you wait for him to finish what he's doing. The town's gotten more popular since you've been away, and there are a lot of people dressed as samurai, which is kinda strange, but you both ignore it and visit the grave, where Makoto tells Musasai how not only did you deal with Ugetsu, but you saved his reputation. He's no longer a criminal. The people now view him as a hero. Satisfied with what she's done, Makoto's ready to leave. However, the sound of someone yelling nearby draws the two of you. You spot a guy that you met a long time ago berating two people who were dressed like samurai for disrespecting Musasai's memory by wearing the gear that they don't deserve yet. The man is Ostergrain, the fake samurai who you beat up when you and Musasai were hunting the serial killer in Limsa. Turns out the beating you gave him made him turn over a new leaf, which is enough to make you forgive him since the evil within him has been excised. After he saw what a real samurai was, he sought out Musasai for training, but when he found out he was dead, he started to visit his grave every day for inspiration. At first the place was peaceful, but lately someone started telling the story of Musasai's mission to fight off evil at the quicksand in Uda, and people have been dressing up as samurai and going to the grave ever since. Ostergrain hates seeing the fake samurai. They're even more fake than he was, but Makoto lets him know that Musasai would be happy to have his story making people want to follow in his footsteps. And he didn't mind the crowds. Knowing that, Ostergrain asks you to train him in the ways of the samurai, but of course you're way too busy for that. Makoto, however, offers to let him train in Kugane, which is a dream come true for the big man. Since it's such a long journey, Makoto doesn't mind his company on the trip back. But first, you have to go see Momozigo, because he's definitely the only person who could be telling Musasai's story. You all join the crowd gathering at the quicksand and watch as Momozigo tells the tale of the legendary sword master, his quest to make the world a better place, and of his apprentice, the Warrior of Light, who still strives to carry out her teacher's wishes to this very day. Limsa Lominsa is a city of pirates run by pirates, and that means there's no small amount of crime. There are multiple groups who go about keeping the peace in their own way, and one of those groups is the Rogues. They like to scoop up new talent they see in the city, and with the Warrior of Light making a name for herself, she was at the top of their list. Jack, their leader, is not your typical guild leader. Instead of hitting you with the long history of the guild and all that mumbo jumbo, he only cares about whether or not you can do the job. And that job is simple. You have to deal with people who break the code of the city. Not long after Limsa was founded, the pirates and thieves realized that if they wanted to survive, they needed some rules to keep them from just killing each other in the streets. So the code was born. It's got a lot of rules, but there are 3 that everyone agrees on. Number 1, you don't rob other Lamensans. Number 2, no stealing from other crews. And number 3, you do not deal with slavers. While the Admiral outlawed piracy altogether, there's always crime. But even in the underworld, the code is still the law. The Yellow Jackets enforce the law on the regular citizens, and the Rogues enforce the code on the underworld. They fight the criminals of the criminals. They're like the Justice League if they all carried daggers and stabbed people. And if you want to be a part of that group, then you're going to have to get good with some blades. So Jack sends you out to practice on some wildlife before he puts you to work. You take to the daggers like a duck in water, so Jack gives you your first job. There's still a way for people to be pirates in Limsa. They have to apply for a license, but there's a catch. You can only rob Garleans. Not a bad deal since there are so many Garlean ships out there. The crews rob the Imperials, then sell their goods in Limsa, and that's where things went bad recently. A crew stole some magitech from the Empire only to get robbed by another crew, which goes against rule number 2 of the code. We can't have that. Since you're brand new, Jack won't send you to deal with the thieves alone. Instead, he partners you up with Paramu Haramu, also known as Underfoot. He's supposed to be in charge of new recruits, although he doesn't really want to do it since Jack just gave him the job a few seconds ago. After giving you some tips on stabbing people properly, Underfoot tells you about the first step of being a rogue, gathering intel. There are agents all over the city, so the two of you head to the Drowning Winch to see if any of your spies have seen anything. Your contact has indeed heard something. A group of horribly named former pirates called the Dainty Demolishers seem to have a habit of stealing Garlean tech and trading it to goblins. There's a goblin camp in Middle Lenosha where they go and sell their goods, and the item they just sold to them is an anti-aircraft firing mechanism. Of course you can't let them keep it, so you head to Summerford and take it back. The goblins are so weak that Underfoot doesn't even have to help you, but as you head back, the Dainty Demolishers follow you. They burst into the Rogues Guild after you, completely unaware that they've stumbled into the guild hall of the very people who were about to come hunt them down. Their laughter dies out pretty fast when they realize their mistake, and Underfoot, Vakebe, and Jack make very short work of them. Now that you've seen your new guild in action and completed your first job, you're ready for the next one. A group of pirates robbed a merchant and stole a shipment of weapons. Seeing as how that is completely illegal, they were arrested by the Yellow Jackets as soon as they reached land, but they had apparently met another ship at sea and sold the weapons before they made it to the city. So the rogues were hired to hunt down the cargo, which they would have done anyway since robbing Lamensis is against the code. Your job is to track down the cargo and take it back. But since the original thieves have already been arrested, this is a stealth mission. So Jack partners you up with Vakebe, the stealthiest member of the rogues, although she seems to be a bit distracted at the moment. She's hungry, and someone stole the sandwich she had left in the fridge. Apparently Jack did it thinking it belonged to Underfoot, but he's not going to tell her that. Instead, he offers to look for it while she's off on a mission with you. Before you head out, he lets you know that the weapons were for the Yellow Jackets, so when you find them, you can just hand them over to them. So after doing a bit of recon and putting your stealth skills to use, you and Vakebe track down the stolen weapons. Of course, taking them back requires a bit of fighting, but the two of you deal with the thieves and you return the weapons before heading to the guild with another job successfully completed. Jack heard all of the noise you and Vakebe made, and since it was supposed to be a stealth mission, he wants to know what happened. Of course, all that matters is you succeeded in the end. However, there is a bit of a problem. Jack sent Underfoot to replace Vakebe's sandwich, and while he does get it, he makes the mistake of saying that Jack was the one who ate it, right in front of Vakebe. Stealing from fellow rogues is against the code, and as punishment, she ties Jack to the top of the city. Now you may be wondering how she managed to do that so fast, but as a foodie, I can vouch for the superpowers you get when someone messes with your food. Remind me to tell you the story of how my cousin snatched a sweet potato pie my grandma had made just for me, and I chased him for half an hour to stop him from sinking a spoon into my pie just because he had already ate his. Now back to important matters. One of the Yellow Jackets saw the display, and she is not happy that they owe the rogues anything other than time in a prison cell. I can't imagine her making problems for us in the future. Nah, not at all. Jack may have managed to get himself free, something I really would have liked to see, but that'll be the last time he touches Vakebe's food. Or he'll at least be a bit more discreet about it in the future. You only get a small break before another assignment comes along. The rogues are super busy, but what do you expect when you work in a city full of pirates? It's a big job, coming straight from the Admiral, so he brings in Underfoot and Vakebe to help out. A group of pirates recently invaded a nearby village and kidnapped the inhabitants to sell them on the black market as slaves. The code is extremely brutal when it comes to slavery, since the founders of Limsa were pirates who were escaping the same type of treatment in the north. One man managed to escape the slavers, and with his help, the Maelstrom soldiers found out that the slavers are members of a group of licensed pirates called the Jolly Merchants. These names are terrible. Pirates are supposed to strike fear into the hearts of people. Who's going to tremble at the sound of the Jolly Merchants coming toward you? While they are licensed pirates, what they've apparently been doing is using the license to hide behind while they do all kinds of illegal pirating. The Admiral's not happy about this at all, and she's been known to shoot people, but it's difficult to redirect resources to hunting down the pirates and their victims, which is why she decided to send someone to hire the rogues. She wants you to deal with the Jolly Merchants and free the slaves while being as discreet as possible so you don't cause people to panic. With the job being so serious, Jack decides to go after the merchants himself, so this time you get to tag along with the guild leader. The pirates recently shipped out of Elport, but Jack thinks most of the crew stayed behind to do a bit of kidnapping, so the two of you head out there to see if one of his contacts saw anything. In the meantime, Vakebe and Underfoot are going to help the Maelstrom soldiers hunt down the slaves. Jack's contact had seen a group of 3 pirates leading off some miserable looking prisoners by the dry docks. They were heading south, probably toward a boat that they have waiting. The best place in the area to hide a boat is the Salt Strand, so you and Jack go to check it out. Sure enough, you see some pirates threatening some captives of theirs, but instead of stopping them right there, you and Jack head back to Elport to deal with them and the friends they're meeting up with. In the city, you wait until nightfall and track down the slaves while avoiding the Yellow Jackets who are looking for some liquor thieves. Since they're more likely to stab you than to find out why you're there, you're forced to put your stealth skills to good use, and your daggers. With the slaves free, Jack talks to the Maelstrom officer who hired you to make sure that they're taken care of, and to make sure that the Jolly Merchants who didn't meet your blades have a run-in with the Admiral's hangman. With all that done, you get ready to head back home when one of the freed captives comes up to thank you and let you know that one of the pirates has spoke of another raiding party that hadn't made it back yet. Apparently they were out snatching more people, something that you and Jack definitely won't let continue. The two of you head to western Lenosha to a place called the Flock, probably because so many dodo birds make their nests there. It's the only place in the area where the pirates can do their work without running into the Sahagin or the Yellow Jacket patrols. You find them there, free their captives, and put them down all before Vakebe and Underfoot can get there to help. With the job done, you would think that everyone would be happy, but some Yellow Jackets arrive, led by Captain Malala, who, despite your good work, sees you as no different from the criminals. She really hates you all, and she plans on making the end of the Rogues Guild her personal project. A Maelstrom ship was robbed a few hours ago, and among the cargo were 3 very valuable items. Malala suggests that you all have a contest to see if the rogues are better than the Yellow Jackets. If her group recovers more of the stolen property than you, then she will put in a formal request to have your guild disbanded. Jack would refuse. However, since the theft goes against the code, it is a job that the rogues would handle anyway. He doesn't really have a choice but to play along, so it's back to the guild hall you go to decide just how to go about shutting up the obnoxious Lalafell soldier. Back at the base, Jack gives you a rundown of what you need to do. You have 2 goals: get the stolen treasures and deal with the thieves, and you have to be fast. The objects are the Cerulean Star, which is a big diamond, the Silver Sorrows, which are a pair of earrings, and the Black Sarcophagus, which Underfoot hasn't been able to find any information about. Pirates usually sell their loot to the black market, but for big stuff they usually set up an auction. Since those particular items were so expensive, they were auctioned off. Then once they were in transit, that was when the thieves struck. Some of the sailors who survived the attack claimed it was the Grinning Curs who did it. The names just keep getting worse. Also, no one's seen any sign of them since the raid. In the middle of Jack's explanation, Vakebe comes running in to let you know that some of the stolen goods were found at a checkpoint during a routine inspection. There's been no sign of the specific items you're searching for, but the Yellow Jackets are still sifting through everything. Not wasting any time, Jack sends you and Underfoot to check it out. When you arrive, you see that Vakebe was right. Apparently, a peddler got caught hauling some of the stuff that the guards knew came from their robbed ship. They arrested him, but they're still searching the cargo. You sneak up to find out what's in the crates, only to learn that the peddler claimed that he was hired to bring those specific goods through that checkpoint. He didn't know anything else, and none of the treasures you were after was among the cargo. The question is, why would anyone send their stolen goods through a checkpoint where they know they'll be found out? Not to mention the fact that they stole the stuff from La Mensa. Why would they be bringing it back? Underfoot knows a guy who makes a living handling these types of underground deals, and he decides to go question them before you head back to the guild. To make sure you're not with the law, Underfoot's black market merchant has his guards attack you. After seeing how you use your daggers, he knows that you're a part of the Rogues Guild, and he's more than willing to talk. The man knows exactly what you're talking about, but no one shares information for free, so after Underfoot hands him some coins, he fills you in. The peddler hadn't had a clue what he was involved in. He'd been hired by an associate of the Grinning Curs, and he didn't even know that what he was carrying was stolen. While the Yellow Jackets waste their time searching the cargo, the Curs are hiding out in the mist. The group hired a navigator who is skilled at guiding ships through the Doxy's Pool, a very dangerous place where the mists hide all manner of dangers known to sink ships, which is why it's a good spot to hide, if you can make it inside. And with the Yellow Jackets thinking that they're moving their goods on land, they can sneak out of the mist and into the open water, unless the rogues get to them first. However, there's more out in the mist than the Curs, so Underfoot decides to track down another lead while Yugo let Jack know what you found. He decides that regardless of what other dangers you might run into, this is the best time to deal with the Curs and get the treasure. Since Underfoot is off on his own, you, Vakebe, and Jack will handle the job yourselves. The Curs are not too happy about you sneaking on their ship, and they do a lot to make you pay for trespassing, but they can't keep up with the three of you. After searching their ship and tying up the crew members who survived, Vakebe finds the Cerulean Star, but the other two items are nowhere to be seen. After a bit of interrogating, the Grinning Curs captain admits that the age of pirates is coming to an end. Merlwyb is putting an end to it all, and his crew is too small to deal with her on his own. But since they've teamed up with the Bloody Executioners, they may be able to bring her down. The star was their cut from the last job they did together. The other two treasures are in the hands of the only pirate crew with a name that actually sounds dangerous. However, that's an issue for later. First, you have to deal with the Curs. Back at the Morabi docks, Malala shows up just in time for you to brag about how you've gotten one of the treasures back already. She shows you just how much she hates pirates by getting ready to execute them right on the docks. However, Jack intervenes, telling her that they have to be put on trial first. The fact that the rogues are more interested in lawful punishments than the Lalafell is a good way to show just how bloodthirsty Malala is. Yet she calls you pirates. Jack's not interested in sticking around to be insulted, but he does warn her that this little contest could end up more dangerous than she thought. Back at the base, Jack admits that he hopes the Curs were lying about the executioners being involved because they are really dangerous. He sends Vakebe out to gather more info while Underfoot is still doing some digging to try and find out what the sarcophagus even looks like. Also, it turns out that the Curs really were working with the Bloody Executioners. To say they're dangerous is an understatement. They hold almost as much power as the Admiral herself. They were not happy about her banning piracy, but the constant Garlean threat made them willing to work with Merlwyb. But their old captain is no longer in charge, and the crew is broken into factions that are all fighting for the top spot, which means there's going to be a lot of collateral damage. One of the groups, calling themselves the Reformists, are looking to break the Admiral's control completely, and they're the ones who teamed up with the Curs. They have the last two treasures, and the rumors Vakebe heard claim that they are ruthless, even by executioner standards. It's so bad that she thinks the rogues shouldn't even get involved. If the executioners turned their sights on the Rogues Guild, there'd be no way to stop them from wiping you all out. However, to Jack, whether the crew is big or small, doesn't matter. They broke the code, and it's the rogues' job to bring them down. Plus, since there's so much fighting amongst the executioners, taking down the Reformists won't bring the whole crew down on you anyway. Regardless, he's done arguing about it. He sends you to find your black market contact and find out what he's learned about the Reformists. He gives you a bag of money and sends you to the man's newest location since he constantly moves around to keep from being caught. After testing you by trying to have his henchmen kill you, again, you hand over the coins and he lets you know that the Reformists are trying to sell the earrings known as the Silver Sorrows. The deal is going down in Costa del Sol with a merchant from Uda. You're not the only one who bought this information. Apparently Malala has decided to use your own tactics against you and sent one of her soldiers to buy the info so she could get ahead of you. When you make it back to the guild with the news, Vakebe is still arguing with Jack about going to war with the executioners. He's not listening, and he's not surprised to hear that the Reformists are pawning off their merch to foreigners. It'd be pretty dumb to try to use Lamenson funds to overthrow the Admiral. He is a bit surprised to hear that one of Malala's men was there. That just means that the pirates you had captured for her had talked a lot during their interrogation. It's fine. It just means that you have to move fast to Costa del Sol if you want to get the earrings before Malala. Vakebe offers to do it herself while you guys wait for Underfoot to get back, but this isn't a job that can be done alone, so you and Jack follow her. She's not a fan of being followed, although she admits that she could use the help. She had wanted to sneak in and snatch the earrings without fighting the Reformists at all so she wouldn't bring their wrath down on the rogues. She knows it's not the way of the code, but the rogues are a family, and she's worried about what will happen if the reformers retaliate. However, sneaking in isn't really an option. The entire resort has been handed over to the Udon merchant for this deal, and he has a lot of guards. Fortunately, Jack finally gets there to offer aid. Have no clue why it took him so long to get there when you both left at the same time, but he's there now. He knows what Vakebe was trying to do, and he understands, but they have a job to do, and he can't have one of his most trusted rogues going soft. The only reason he believes the guild can handle the executioners is because of you, Underfoot, and Vakebe, and he can't have any of you losing your nerve. When you're on your game, it's the pirates who should be scared, not the other way around. His pep talk gets Vakebe back on track, and the three of you cut a swath through the guards on your way to the earrings. The reformist accountant who was trying to sell the earrings tries to scare you by mentioning his boss first. Then he tries to scare you by saying you could ruin Uda and Limsa's relationship by hurting a foreign dignitary. Jack may have been born at night, but it wasn't last night, so all of their attempts to manipulate him fail miserably. Unfortunately, before you can get the merchant to hand over the earrings, Malala shows up and convinces them to give them to her since she came with an official order authorized by the Admiral herself. That puts the score tied at 1 item each, meaning the winner of this little contest will be the one who recovers the sarcophagus. Vakebe decides to go give Underfoot a hand with finding the thing since the faster the rogues can get their hands on it, the faster they can be done with the annoying Lalafell. Back at the guild hall, Underfoot is finally back, and he has some info on the last item. The sarcophagus is a prototype Magitech bomb stolen from a Garlean ship. It's not that big, but it has enough power to bring down a behemoth. The Garleans were planning on making the bombs at their factory in Lenosha, then shipping them out through Castrum Marinum before some pirates stole them. While he was able to find out what the sarcophagus was, Underfoot has no idea where it is. All he knows is that the reformers do have it, unless they sold it, which Jack highly doubts. The discussion is interrupted when Lonnie brings an urgent letter to Jack. It comes from his black market contact, and he wants Jack to come to Thalos because he has some important news for him. The odd thing is the old man has never sent letters to his customers. That means this could be something really big or a trap. So instead of going alone, Jack wants you to tag along while Underfoot and Vakebe work on finding the bomb. You arrive to find your contact dead and a squad of reformers waiting to ambush you, so the obvious trap was obvious. Another reformer shows up to brag, but there's no hard feelings. She was just following orders, and her boss told them to go play with the rogues. There's a lot more fun games we could have played other than hide the axe in the rogue, like, Triple Triad or something. But what do you expect from the only pirate crew with a pirate-like name? However, you did get involved, and like Vakebe had feared, the reformers are after you all. But that's only after Captain Icebeard takes over the crew. Then he'll do away with the rogues and return pirating to the way it should be. The last executioner decides not to fight you since she knows she can't take both you and Jack, but she did stall you for long enough for Icebeard to get his crew in place to plant their bomb in the heart of Limsa Lominsa and kill the Admiral. Jack takes the pirate back to the guild to question, and he wants you to hurry back after you let Malala know what's going on. Whether the two of them disagree on how to protect Limsa or not, it's obvious that an attempt on the Admiral's life is worth setting aside their differences. Malala still doesn't trust you. She thinks you're there to steal the earrings, something she has put in the safest place imaginable, her ears. But when you tell her about the reformist plan, she immediately puts more soldiers on duty. But that still won't make her give up on your contest, something she wants you to make sure you tell Jack, along with giving him her gratitude for the warning. All that's left to do is prepare for the attack. It'll be aimed at the Admiral's command room, so Jack sends all of his rogues out to keep their eyes open for any signs of the pirates. The attack comes swiftly, and while she fights to protect the city, Malala is severely injured. Jack hears her gunshot and uses it to find her. He sends for a medic, and you and the rogues get to work dealing with the pirates. While they face off against the captain, you disarm the bomb's detonators, and with that done, you bring down the reformist leader and save the city. Malala recovers from her wounds, and while the people of the city cheer for her for saving them, she admits that it wasn't her that did it. She praises the rogues, until she realizes that while she lay there bleeding, Jack had stolen the earrings out of her ears. With the mission a success, Limsa Lominsa saved, and the contest won by the rogues, it's time to return home, until the day the city needs you all to do it over again. After dealing with the wannabe king of the pirates, not this one, and saving Limsa Laments and the Admiral from being blown up, Jack lets you know that some of his men saw some suspicious looking people hanging around Wineport. The problem is they seem like simple refugees, but the way they're skulking around is a bit suspicious. They aren't breaking the code, but it's the Rogues Guild's job to make sure it stays that way, so Jack wants you to meet Underfoot in Wineport so the two of you can check things out. Underfoot's already been looking around, but all he's found are more questions. The refugees say they came from the South Sea Isles, but Underfoot's spies said that was a lie. No ship from the Isles has even come to Wineport, which means the two of you have some investigating to do, but a woman's screams make you change your plans. You run off to find a woman standing in the middle of 3 very dead men. She claims they had demanded she give them all of her stuff, but when they saw how little she had, they fought over it, leading to the scene you walked up on. Underfoot warns her about the dangers of traveling alone and how she may not be so lucky next time. As soon as she leaves, Underfoot lets you know just how little he believes their woman's story. There are far too few marks on the fallen men for them to have fought each other. Since she's obviously hiding something, the two of you follow her to see if you can find out what's really going on. On her trail, you pass another group of fallen men who at first glance seem to be simple peasants, but after seeing their weapons, Underfoot knows the men are no beggars. One of them is still alive, and he begs you to take a small stone back to 2 people named Oboro and Subame before he dies. The two of you track the woman to Upper Lenosha where she's hiding behind a tree. Why do people think that's ever a good place to hide? She's shocked to see you, but before you can question her anymore, a ninja dressed in red leaps out of a tree and taunts the woman for thinking that putting on peasant clothes would hide her from him. Being the hero that you are, you step in between them, but the red ninja reveals that the woman is more than capable of defending herself, which she proves by pulling out some knives and charging the man. Her attack is stopped when a shuriken flies in between them and a ninja in blue named Oboro somersaults in. He calls the red ninja Karasu, and they were apparently friends when they were younger, although their personalities couldn't be more different. Karasu acts like he's partaken in all of the drugs, while Oboro seems to have a large stick wedged in a very uncomfortable orifice. Chastising you for being in other people's business, Karasu throws a shuriken at your face, but with your training and a bit of bullet time, you dodge it with little effort, which intrigues the psychotic shinobi. Since you might prove to be useful, he decides to let you live before he tosses a smoke bomb and vanishes. I still want to learn how that works one day. With Karasu gone, Underfoot wants some answers, starting with why was the woman in Wineport in the first place? Oboro has heard of the rogues, and he apologizes to Underfoot for not coming to meet with you all when they first arrived, but he is more than willing to explain the situation. He and Subame are shinobi from Doma, which is very far away and currently under Garlean rule. They had fought the Garleans, and they would have kept them out of their lands if they hadn't been betrayed by one of their own. All of their tricks and strategies were told to their enemies, and thousands of their people were killed, leaving Doma in Imperial hands. The traitor was the ninja Karasu, and the elders of Oboro's village have sent him out to execute the traitor for his crimes. While they tracked the rogue ninja down, he killed a lot of their friends before he escaped. That reminds you of the soul crystal that Oboro's fallen ally had told you to take to him. It's their tradition to store the crystals of the fallen in their village so they can be with their ancestors, but when the crystal resonates with you, Oboro believes it's a sign that you are supposed to fight with them. He decides to make you an offer. You will work with them to hunt down Karasu since you know the land, and in return he will teach you their art of ninjutsu. Subame protests since you aren't a doman, but with so many of their allies either dead or severely injured, they don't have much of a choice. Underfoot doesn't want to see you leave the rogues, but he admits that if he were younger, he'd want the ninja training too. Oboro tells you where to meet him if you decide to join them, which of course you will. Since he found out the newcomers weren't breaking the code, Underfoot heads back home while you make your very obvious decision. When you show up at their base, Oboro is more than happy that you decided to take him up on his offer, despite the fact that it's forbidden to teach outsiders their craft of using ninjutsu, which is basically another form of channeling ether to perform techniques that are dictated by hand signs or mudras. Being who you are, you take to Oboro's lessons pretty fast, mastering the first mudra with only a bit of training, something that Oboro is very surprised to see happen. But that's a good thing, because it gives you more time to teach him about Eorzeans and their strange horse birds. Since you learned the first mudra so quickly, Oboro begins teaching you the second. As before, you take to it like a duck to water, causing Oboro to grant you the rank of Chunin. As per his traditions, he takes you to a waterfall to celebrate your talents with another intense training session. At a place called the Fool's Falls in Lenosha, Oboro gives you a bit of information about his people. They don't worship the 12 like the people of Eorzea. Instead, they believe their gods are all around, existing in every part of nature from the trees to the water. Focusing on nature helps clear your mind of all else and improves your control of your mudras. He wants to put you through a few exercises, but before you can really get into it, Karasu shows up. He taunts Oboro about being so predictable that even in a strange land, the spot where he would take his new apprentice was obvious. But that turns out to be a good thing, because you get to have some hands-on training, which Karasu is more than happy to give you. He fights you for a little while before he runs off and lets some of his Imperial subordinates deal with you. They are good, but between you and Oboro, they fall quickly. He apologizes for not anticipating Karasu's attack, but since the strange shinobi seems to be interested in you, Oboro decides to tell you everything. He and Karasu grew up together, and both trained under a man named Master Gakkai. Karasu was one of the best shinobi in the area, way better than Oboro, but that only made him train harder to catch up. Despite the fact that Karasu did whatever he wanted, never really thinking about whether his actions were right or wrong, Oboro still thought of him as a brother. Until the day that Doma Castle was taken by the Garleans. Someone had betrayed them, and as Oboro walked among the corpses of his friends, he saw Karasu running away. He was the traitor, and his actions led to the deaths of nearly all of the shinobi, even Master Gakkai himself. It looked like Karasu had taken pleasure in killing Gakkai because the man was beaten so badly that he was hardly recognizable. Oboro figured that he would be able to find out why Karasu turned on them when they fought again, but now he has even more questions. Like, why didn't Karasu kill the two of you at Fool's Falls instead of deciding to test you? However, that doesn't change the fact that he has to die for his crimes against Doma. However, as good as he knows Oboro and Tsubume, it'll be hard for them to best a rogue ninja. But having you there, someone Karasu knows nothing about, could give them an edge no matter how small. But you'll need to be way stronger before you can do that. And to improve your skills further, Oboro believes you need more practice in the field, and you will get it by helping track down Karasu yourself. Oboro has gathered a bit of intel that should help with that. Captain Grimmelwill of the Bloody Executioners has managed to dodge a handful of assassination attempts over the last few days, and since the target is someone that most people wouldn't even be able to get close to, he thinks it has to be Karasu and his men. And since the only thing that stops a ninja from bringing down their target is death, Karasu will definitely try again. So if you find out where and when, then you'll find Karasu. He's found someone who can help with that too. One of Grimmelwill's lieutenants named Wolfston enjoys bathing at the hot springs of Camp Bronze Lake, so you head there to find him. Oboro is pleased to see that so many Eorzeans enjoy one of the simple pleasures of his homeland, public bathing. How that's a pleasure is beyond me, but to each his own. But with so many people at the resort, it won't take long before they notice the foreigners, which makes it hard to be stealthy. So instead of wandering around, Oboro decides you should stand watch from atop one of the buildings until your target arrives. When Wolfston shows up, Oboro comes up with a plan to use bamboo breathing pipes to hide underwater and eavesdrop on the man's conversation. I don't know how he thought that would work in broad daylight in a place with water as clear as glass, but fortunately Tsubume has a little bit more of a location-friendly plan. One that just needs a change of clothes for her and a few bottles of alcohol. Since both she and the warrior of light are attractive women, the men will be more than willing to accept drinks from them while Oboro watches out for them from above. Despite the talk of public bathing being common in Doma, Tsubume seems a little bit uncomfortable in her bathing suit, but she does a job of slipping something in the liquor bottle that will definitely make Wolfston lower his guard and start talking. A little bit of drinking and flirting from Tsubume gets Wolfston to tell you that his captain's in Elport. I can't lie, the way Tsubume manipulated him was so well planned out that I am 100% positive that while Oboro can fight better than she can, espionage is definitely her specialty. With this new information, the three of you rush off to Elport because Karasu is undoubtedly already there. Sure enough, when you arrive, Oboro points out that the people you see walking around dressed like dock workers are Imperial shinobi in disguise, meaning Karasu is definitely there because he doesn't leave his missions in the hands of his henchmen. The three of you split up so you can track the rogue ninja down before he gets away. You find him on the docks, and he's actually surprised that you managed to sneak up on him. He and his flunkies fight you, but in the midst of the fighting, Karasu manages to get away yet again. So it's back to your base to once again work on tracking the shinobi down. Oboro had always known Karasu was strong, but he seems to be getting even stronger every time you fight him, which makes him wonder just what kind of training he's doing since he came to Eorzea. But stronger or not, Oboro's mission hasn't changed. He has to kill the man, otherwise it'll mean his own death. That's the only way a shinobi is allowed to fail a mission. While that sounds a bit grim, one good thing has come from all of this. You've grown so strong in the arts of the ninja that Oboro believes it's time for you to receive the ancestral gear of the shinobi that you've seen him and Tsubame wearing. He's already had the Rogues Guild send word to his village to get a set delivered, since if he sent for it himself, Karasu would probably have found out about it and caused a problem. The gear is being delivered to the Deneville checkpoint, and the carrier knows you're on the way. When you get there, however, someone's already picked up your shipment and left a message that they'd pay good money to the person who murders the next person that shows up to ask about it. The fact that the porter talked to you before sicking his bodyguard on you is exactly why the guy ended up dead. Why do villains think it's better to monologue before killing the hero? Something I'll never understand, but seeing how easily you dealt with his bodyguard freaks out the porter and he goes to run away, only to be finished off by Karasu, who just appears out of nowhere. Ninjas have a habit of doing that. He heard about the shipment despite Oboro's attempts at secrecy, and he decided to take a peek. When he saw the shinobi gear, he decided to take it and see if you were really ready for it. He took 4 pieces of the gear and put them in crates in different places. Then he set 4 of his people to guard them and told them that if you take it from them, they'd better be dead. If you can get your gear without dying, then you deserve to have it. He tells you where they are before he vanishes again. You could just go home, but let's not pretend the Warrior of Light wouldn't do anything for glamour. So you travel around Eorzea retrieving the gear and taking down Karasu's minions before returning to where he'd first appeared. Instead of Karasu, Oboro shows up. He was worried when you were gone for so long and he decided to come and find you. When you tell him what happened, he can't believe that Karasu came after you on your own. Why that's a shock to him is beyond me, but okay. He does find it strange that the man didn't kill you when he could have, but decided to test you again. It's strange, but not as strange as the scroll that he left on the ground for you. In it he claims that he left a present for you and Oboro back at your base, and knowing that Tsubame and Oboro's other allies are still there, the two of you rush back. You arrive in time to see signs of battle. One of Oboro's friends is in shock, and Tsubame is gone. You find her not far away, injured and kneeling, with Karasu boasting about how he tortured her. Oboro is furious, which is what Karasu was going for. And to make it worse, he taunts him about how he couldn't save his countrymen before when the Garleans attacked, and even with all of his training, he still couldn't help his friends. That's the last straw, and Oboro attacks. This time, Karasu has no intention of running away. This time, it'll be a fight to the death. With the two of you fighting together, you bring Karasu to his knees. Finally, Oboro prepares to execute the traitor who led to the destruction of his home, only for Karasu to reveal that he's not the leader of this group of Imperials, nor is he the traitor. He wasn't the only one who ran away from Doma, and he wants Oboro to think back to all of the dead he saw that day, and who was in the pile of bodies that was hard for him to identify. There was one person that he had assumed dead, but his face was so badly mangled that it was unrecognizable. The traitor wasn't Karasu at all, but their master Gakkai. Oboro doesn't believe him since he saw Karasu running away when it was all over, but the reason for that was simple. He had felt something was odd about his master's death, so he left the village to find answers, only to find their master alive and well. The man had given him 2 options: follow him or die. Since Karasu was a fan of living, he'd rather live as an Imperial spy than die to stay loyal to a fallen nation. He doesn't care if Oboro believes him or not, since he's a dead man either way, but he tells you to go to Candlekeep Quay if you want to know the truth. As his last words, he tells Oboro that whatever he decides to do, tradition or not, he better make sure he stays alive. He's too noble of a man for anything else. Before Oboro can make any move to stop him, Karasu leaps into the air and detonates a grenade in his own hand. Despite the mission being over, Oboro doesn't know what to make of Karasu's last words, or his revelation about their master. But before he can worry about any of that, Tsubame's injuries need to be treated. Once she recovers, it'll be time to head back to Doma, but Oboro doesn't want to leave without seeing if there was any truth to Karasu's words. Regardless of what he wants, he's a shinobi and he has to follow orders. Those orders demand that he heads back home since his mission is finished. Whether his master lives or not is irrelevant. It's time to go. He just wants a little time to gather his thoughts before he heads out, and he asks you to look after Tsubume while he's gone. Turns out Tsubume's not as badly injured as you had thought. Karasu hadn't really been trying to do any damage. All he had been doing was trying to tick off Oboro. But Oboro knew that, so him asking you to watch her seems a bit suspicious. Since he always likes to think near waterfalls, Tsubume figures he's heading back to Fool's Falls. She's noticed how conflicted he's been over Karasu's last words, and she sends you off to check on him. He's exactly where you expected him to be, and since you came to find him, he finally admits that he's more conflicted about what he should do than what he puts on. Before the fight with Karasu, he had never questioned his people's customs or traditions. He ignored his own wants and desires and focused only on following orders. But when he saw Tsubume hurt and remembered all of his dead friends, his desire to get revenge in his own way came back. Now he's decided to go and see if Karasu was right about their master being alive and being the real traitor so he can avenge his friends. Since this isn't an official mission, he won't ask you or Tsubume to join him. There's no reason for you to put your life at risk for his revenge. He teleports off to finish his personal mission, and you notice that Tsubume had followed you. Mission or not, she has no intention of letting Oboro fight his master alone. She's going to help him, and she wants you to come too because Master Gakkai makes Karasu look like a white belt. You've been fighting with them for so long, there's no real reason to abandon them now. So the two of you head off to the last location Karasu mentioned, Candlekeep Quay. You check with one of the guards when you arrive to see if there's been any unusual things going on. Other than a private ship being scheduled to dock at dawn, everything's been pretty normal aside from a milkmaid coming and asking the same question you did not that long ago. Tsubume lets you know that the milkmaid is one of Oboro's favorite disguises, which means he's already there. Instead of skulking around looking for him, she thinks it's a good idea to lay low until Gakkai shows himself. The two of you split up with Tsubume watching the shoreline while you take the high ground. From your vantage point, you see Oboro confront his master, who is indeed alive and working for the Empire. He wants to know why he turned traitor, what caused him to abandon his own people and leave them at the mercy of the Empire. He claims he did it for the village. Shinobi are no different from mercenaries. Switching masters for the best price is what they do, and since his skills were in such high demand, he was able to ask for a high price. It was for that reason that when the Doman Rebellion was annihilated by the Garleans, Oboro's village was left alone. He doesn't feel he should be labeled a traitor. He should be revered as the hero who saved his people. Oboro thinks the Domans who died that day would see things a little bit differently, but Gakkai doesn't care. People die every day, but shinobi are valuable. That's who he cares about. That one line is enough to set Oboro off, and he vows to kill Gakkai to avenge his fallen friends. Gakkai is more than happy to let him try, but his time in Garlemald has let him make quite a few friends, and he sees no reason to fight Oboro alone. But of course Oboro's not alone either. The Warrior of Light and Tsubume join in, and together you all face off against Gakkai and his men. Gakkai uses powers that Oboro had thought lost to time, and summons physical manifestations of mudras to fight alongside him. Still, against the three of you he's overpowered. With the battle done, Oboro thanks the two of you for helping him bring down Gakkai, and he even thanks Karasu, who he vows to never forget, only for the Red Ninja to show up behind you, alive and well wearing regular clothes. How he faked the death we saw is beyond me, but there are weirder things happening in Eorzea. If he wanted to get away from Gakkai that bad, he could have just joined you to help kill him, but at least he did bring the last piece of your shinobi gear with him. He goes to leave, but Oboro lets him know that now that they know the truth, the elders should remove the death mark on him and let him come back to the village. He's being naive. While Karasu wasn't the traitor, he did follow him, and that counts the same in the eyes of the elders. And they're right. Karasu is well aware of the fact that his few good deeds don't remove the fact that he was both a spy and an assassin. Two things that he wants you to remember he is very good at. And he's killed almost as many people as Gakkai, including a lot of people Oboro brought with him when he first came to Eorzea, which is the whole reason he was training you in the first place. How in the world could he have forgotten that so fast? Karasu tosses Oboro his soul crystal so he can take it back to the village as proof that he completed his mission and dealt with the traitor. Oboro vows to change the village to a place Karasu will be proud to call home before the other shinobi heads off. This gave me serious Naruto and Sasuke vibes, which is not a good thing. It's bad enough that Naruto was willing to ignore all the bad stuff that Sasuke did just to try to bring his friend back to the village. Now Oboro's doing the same thing. With everything over and done with finally, Oboro thanks you for your help, but instead of going home like he's supposed to, he decides to stay in Eorzea for a while to learn more about its culture, while Tsubume reports back to the elders and makes some excuses for Oboro's slow return so they don't brand him a traitor and send someone to kill him. As for you, it's time for you to return to your other duties until Oboro calls on you for another assignment, which could happen very, very soon. It's been a while since you beat Oboro's former master Gakkai, and he's glad to see you, although he doesn't have anything else to teach you. You have to find your own path forward as a ninja. However, that'll have to wait. Jack recently sent a message to Oboro telling him to come and see him in Limsa Lamensa ASAP, and since you showed up right before he headed out, Oboro thinks it'll be nice if you joined him. After all, it's been a while since you last saw your friends at the guild, too. Jackie is glad to see you, but there's a problem. There's a thief running around in Limsa who is fast, from the Far East, and dressed like a ninja. Ironically enough, this sounds exactly like Oboro, which he says is a joke, but it stops being funny when Jack tells him he's under arrest. The rogue is only joking, but he nearly made Oboro have a heart attack. Apparently he still hasn't removed that stick from his backside because he's still way too uptight. All joking aside, there really is a ninja running around the city stealing things, and although Oboro isn't the culprit, he offers to help Jack in his search. And since you're his apprentice, he volunteers you too. He didn't even bother to ask, but it's not like you wouldn't have helped anyway. Together, the three of you head to Summerford Farms to talk to the last victim, a man named Mofa Kefla. Mofa's a prick, but he does respect Jack's skills, so he tells you that two thieves from the Far East stole an orb he paid for and took off to the northwest. It shouldn't be too hard to track down some people who don't even know the area all that well, but Jack wants you to capture them alive so he can find out why they're stealing. You spot the two thieves in a canyon where you corner them. Oboro knocks one of them out while Jack questions the other to find out why she turned to a life of crime. Instead of answering, she pulls out two blades and gets ready to fight. Mofa shows up. Apparently he decided to follow you, but not for the reasons you might think. He came to have you all killed before the woman could reveal how he came about the orb that she'd taken from him. He'd hired a mercenary to deal with you all, but he is clearly confused about who you are. The three of you beat the man senseless, then Jack does the same to Mofa. I swear almost every Lalafell you meet early on in this game is a bad guy. The woman thanks you for dealing with the mercenary, although she could have done it herself. Her accent and the way she bows seems familiar to Oboro, and when he asks, she gets her manservant Akagi to explain things. The woman is Princess Yuki of the Yatsurugi clan, and she left home to track down her family's treasures that had gotten stolen by some bandits. Oboro indeed recognizes her clan, but he wants to know why she made the trip from Doma herself. She doesn't want to waste time talking since she still doesn't know who the bandits were, but she has managed to track down 3 of the 5 treasures. Once she has them all, she'll go back to Doma. Oboro refuses to let her go without a ninja to watch her back, so naturally he volunteers you for the job. However, Yuki remembers how the shinobi destroyed Doma, and there's no way she's going to trust you to guard her back. Akagi, on the other hand, is more than happy for your help since he's not all that good at fighting. Oboro lets him know to send word to his base if he needs anything, and Akagi heads off to catch up to Yuki. Meanwhile, Jack plans on doing a bit of work to find out who stole Yuki's property in the first place. It doesn't take long for Akagi to call on you for help. The princess has decided to sneak into a bandit group's base, and he wants you to come and save her. In the meantime, he's stalling her by Memorune's trading post till you get there. He won't be able to stall her for long, so you and Oboro race off as fast as you can. You get there before she leaves, and as you should have expected, she's not happy that Akagi delayed her so you could show up. She wants to send you away, but Akagi is more than willing to face Yuki's wrath if it means she stays alive long enough to yell at him, so he lets you know what's going on. Some rumors have been going around the black market saying that items that sound like the ones stolen from Yuki have shown up. Sifting through all of the rumors and checking them out one at a time is time consuming, but they heard that some pirates called the Salt Hounds keep records of the black markets and what they have for sale. which would be useful in their search for their lost treasures, so the princess plans on sneaking in their camp alone and stealing it, which she proves by sneaking off while you're all talking. While she doesn't want your help, Oboro doesn't mind helping her from the shadows by clearing a few guards out of her path. Akagi isn't a fighter despite carrying a giant axe, but he's willing to help too. However, the princess's skills are nothing to laugh at, and by the time you take down some of the guards, she's already gotten the papers and read through them. The other two treasures are mentioned in the papers. One of them was sold, but Yuki thinks she can track down the buyer. The other treasure, a dagger, is getting ready to be put up for auction. Akagi didn't realize just how strong the princess was, but Oboro already knew. Yuki is so skilled at ninjutsu that her own teachers couldn't even keep up with her, which is why she claims she doesn't need your help. However, Akagi is still not so sure, and even though this mission went well, he still plans on calling you for the next one. It doesn't take long for him to send a note to the base saying he needs you to meet him immediately. He's hysterical when you get to him because Princess Yuki found out who bought her clan's jewel and ran off to get it without him. To make matters worse, despite her skills, the guards caught sight of her and now they're looking for her, which means she can't escape with her prize. And since it's your mission to keep her alive, you have to find a way to distract the guards. Oboro has an idea on how you can make that happen. Since the guards think Yuki's ninjutsu is magic, that means they don't know how it works. So you can throw a few lightning jutsus which they will mistake for hers, and you can draw them down to the south so she can escape. Once you're done, you can meet them all at the Salt Strand. The plan actually works on some of the guards, but when you arrive at the Salt Strand, a group of guards are waiting for you. They thought you were the princess because they didn't think Yuki had the money to hire bodyguards. Their mysterious leader of the group, a guy called Redway, is after money, so normally he wouldn't bother with you, but seeing the way you look at him reminds him of Karasu and Gekkai. Apparently they thought this guy was unworthy of being a shinobi since he wasn't from Doma. He's a little bit salty about it. Because of your condescending look, he decides to torture you until you tell him where Yuki is. I mean, if that's the excuse he wants to use, that's fine, but I'm pretty sure he was planning on doing that even if you had smiled and batted your eyelashes at him. You dispatch his lackeys pretty easily, but Redway is far from a slouch in battle. Fortunately, Oboro finally arrives and joins in, causing Redway to use a technique that Karasu had used on you before. When he sees Oboro, he recognizes him as the one who fought against Gekkai, and seeing him lets Redway know who you are. Realizing that he can't beat the two of you at once, he decides to run away. Oboro has no idea who the man was, but after Gekkai's death, the Empire disbanded his group of Imperial Shinobi, so Redway could be one of those who got hired as a mercenary. But the two of you can figure that out later. First, you have to make sure Yuki is safe. When you meet up with her, she is adamant about the fact that she could have escaped on her own, but your interference doesn't matter since she got the Jade Jewel. Now all that's left is finding her clan's dagger, and she doesn't want you to interfere. Of course, Akagi says he's going to call on you again as soon as Yuki puts herself in danger. Oboro does warn him about Redway, and despite how she may act, both he and Akagi think the princess is starting to like you, which is not what I got from their interactions, but okay. The next bit of news you get turns out to be pretty good. Jack's rogues have figured out who's been selling the Yatsurugi clan's treasures. Oboro sent you to go and find out what he's learned, while he waits for Yuki and Asagi who will come into your base. Oboro sent a letter telling her that he has information on the bandits, and for that, she's willing to talk to him. After doing a bit of threatening with a dagger, Jack got Mofa Kefla to talk. Yuki's dagger is being sold at an auction by a group of pirates called the True Hounds. Since they are stealing from the Far East, which is technically Garlean territory, they aren't breaking the code, except for the fact that Yuki's homeland isn't Garlean controlled. However, the guild can't officially get involved because there's no proof that they aren't actually stealing from the Empire. Jack has a black marketeer doing his investigating in an unofficial capacity. The guy's good, but he's a little weird, so Jack gives you his payment and sends you off to see him. Just like the last guy, he has you fight his bodyguards before he's even willing to talk to you, but he does indeed have some good information. The True Hounds are pirates who work under a captain named Rosalind, and they are former members of the Salt Hounds who refuse to leave the sea even after the calamity. They all use the drug Pluto to enhance their strength, and they are feared all across the land because of how vicious they are. Recently they hid their ship at Hullbreaker Isle and headed to Costa del Sol for a drink and to watch the dancing girls. And while the regular pirates aren't much for you to worry about, He warns you that Redway, their hired mercenary, is an entirely different story. Apparently Oboro was right about his background, so you had best be careful. That's all the info the guy has for you, so it's off to Costa del Sol you go. It's not hard to spot the pirates on the beach. Rosalind is sitting out in a bathing suit drinking while Redway reports on Yuki and Akage and how they stole her treasure. He warns her not to underestimate them, especially since she has 2 shinobi in her group who were strong enough to kill Gakkai. Redway's not in the least bit bitter about his master's death. He hated Gakkai and Karasu since they treated him like crap since he wasn't from their village. Which is good, because Rosalind would not have been happy if he tried to get personal vengeance while on her time clock. He does want to kill Oboro, but not for revenge. He just wants to prove that he is better than all of the Doman shinobi. Rosalind doesn't really care. As long as he captures Yuki alive, he can do whatever he wants with the shinobi. And she knows that Yuki will be coming to the auction for the dagger, which makes it the perfect trap. Now that you know what's coming, you rush back to Oboro's base to let everyone know what you found out. Knowing what you know, Oboro begs the princess to leave it to him so she stays out of harm's way. While his words make sense, Yuki still feels that she needs to do this herself. She refuses to let anyone else die for her. Apparently when the True Hounds took the treasures, her people tried to stop them, and a lot of them died. Her guards wouldn't let her fight, and while her people were being killed, they screamed for her to help, but she was forced to stand by and do nothing. Now her lands are on the brink of destruction, and her people are on the verge of starvation. She has to find the treasures so she can sell them and fund her village, and she vowed to do it herself so no one else would die protecting her. Akage steps in saying it's nice that she wants to protect her people, but she's forgetting that some of them think it's an honor to die for their leader. In a fit of loyalty that is a tad bit extreme, he vows to slice open his stomach if she refuses to let the shinobi help. So if she refuses to accept aid, then she will cause her most loyal servant to die. And she has no reason not to trust the two of you. You haven't been paid, you have no dog in the fight, yet you've risked your lives more than once to help. And she will fail without you. While she laughs at Akage's enthusiasm, Yuki does indeed formally request your aid. Under one condition, of course, that no matter what, if it comes down to it, you will not sacrifice your life for hers. That's a stipulation I can personally get behind, but we both know that the Warrior of Light does not share my views. However, you have your mission. All that's left is to track down the auction where the artifact is being sold. Ironically enough, despite all of your searching, you don't find the auction's location until after it's over. A collector bought the dagger, but he is so scared of Yuki coming after him, news of what she's done is spread it seems, that he paid to have it brought directly to Ishgard. That's actually good news since you can steal it while it's on the move. Since the True Hounds rely heavily on Pluto to help them fight, Oboro wants to swap their supply for some sleeping herbs, but Yuki just wants to fight them straight up. How has this woman even survived this long thinking it's a good idea to attack an entire pirate crew head on? The True Hounds base is located in Lenosha, and they get their supplies from Lemsa. Oboro wants to split up to deal with the situation faster. He and Akage will look for the True Hound supply, while you and Yuki go to Hawker's Alley and get the lavender incense that will work as a knockout gas. The princess even complains about you coming to help her do that, despite the fact that she seemed to forget that you have to have money to buy things. According to her, she just forgot her purse, an excuse that people tend to use to hide the fact that they're broke. But you have what you need now, so it's time to meet up with Oboro and Akage. But Yuki hears some familiar voices and looks around to see that some of her people followed her to Eorzea and are looking for her. She has no intention of letting them see her, but of course Akage and Oboro show up at just that moment with Akage loudly calling her name. She calls him an idiot and runs off without explaining anything, and he follows her. Oboro doesn't even want to know what that was all about. He does let you know that the hounds are storing their supplies near Fisherman's Bottom. He wants you to make the swap while he goes after the princess. That night you all watch as the pirates talk about their route and how long their trip would be without a dose of their medicine. They know Yuki's coming, so they double their guards. But that won't mean much once they take the sleeping herbs. So you all head off to the smoldering wastes in Dravania to get ahead of them. The plan works, and most of the guards are out. You and the others deal with the handful that aren't, while Yuki goes to search the crates for the dagger. Akage is injured in the fighting because he's bad at it, but Yuki does find the dagger. However, Redway finds you all. He doesn't drink or take part in the rest of the crew's activities, so he is totally alert and ready to deal with you. Of course, he's not stupid enough to fight you all. Instead, he's captured Yuki's vassals, and if she doesn't turn herself in with the stolen treasures, he'll kill them. A smart leader would have diced Redway up and left him for dragon food, but Yuki surrenders. Redway warns Oboro that if he tries anything, he'll kill all of the prisoners, starting with Yuki. Akagi protests, but he's too injured to even try and stop her. Oboro understands why she went willingly, and whether he agreed with it or not, she was in charge, and he had to follow her orders. The last order she gave before she let Redway lead her away was to tend to Akagi's wounds, so you take him back to your base to fix him up. Once he's better, Oboro fully intends to rescue Yuki. However, he doesn't want to talk about the plan right now because he's positive that some of Redway's spies are around the base. He sends you outside to draw them out by pretending to fall asleep on patrol, and when they attack, he wants you to make sure they don't live to report to their boss. You make quick work of them, something Oboro could have done himself, and now it's time to get to rescuing Yuki. He had Jack steal a boat for you to use to head to Hullbreaker Isle and find the princess, but since Redway had people watching your base, there's no way he doesn't have people at the docks, so rushing off without doing a bit of recon is guaranteed to end badly. Akagi doesn't want to, but he agrees to stay behind since he'll only slow you down. At the docks, Oboro sees just how many of the hounds are there, and he decides that fighting your way through won't work. If any of them escape to report to Redway, Yuki will die for sure. He has another plan, but it is very stupid. The princess ordered you to stay alive, not him. Redway wants to kill him, so if he surrenders himself, that'll give you a chance to sneak to the Isle and save Yuki. Before you have a chance to protest, he yells out how untrustworthy you turned out to be and how he wished he had never trained you. It's not true, of course, but he needed the hounds to think the two of you had gone your separate ways. Then he bids you farewell and turns himself in. Oboro tries to taunt Redway into fighting him, but the man laughs at him saying, "Why should I fight you when I've already won?" Which shows that he's not a dumb villain. I respect that. Even his plan to use Oboro as bait to draw out his village elders is more thought out than just launching an attack on a village full of shinobi. But before he gets to that, he has other things to do, and he takes Oboro away while you watch from the shadows. Surprisingly, Akagi runs up. Apparently he followed you despite his injuries, and he yells at you for watching your friend get taken without doing anything. But he calms down when he learns that it's all a part of your plan to save Yuki. Since he's here, he wants to help, and even though he's no great fighter, every little bit will help against what's to come. The distraction worked, and the two of you board a boat to Hullbreaker Isle. Rosalind is there, and after seeing that all of her stolen treasures accounted for, instead of releasing the prisoners like she said she would, she decides to take Yuki prisoner too, since there's no reason to let them go. And that's why you never give up your bargaining chip. If you don't have the power to force people to keep their word, you are totally at their mercy if they decide to break it. Redway shows up with Oboro, and Yuki gets even angrier since he followed her despite her orders. And since it looks like you abandoned her, despite her claims of being able to do everything alone, the taunts about her weakness and inability to help her people, even in this, causes her to break down. Until one of the pirates screams as you finish him off and leap in to fight for your friends with Akagi right on your heels. Finally, truly accepting that she doesn't have to do everything alone, Yuki gives you one final order. Save her and kill every last one of the pirates. That's an order you have no problem obeying. Akagi holds off Redway while you free Oboro, and the three of you get to work dealing with him and the pirates. When he realizes that he can't win, Redway goes to run away, only to be finished off by Rosalind, who jumps in to deal with you all herself. She definitely earned her spot as the True Hound's leader, but up against you, Oboro, and Akagi, she doesn't stand a chance. Now freed from captivity with her treasures back in her possession, Yuki thanks you and Oboro for your help. Because of you, she has a chance to restore her village, and because of what you did for the Yatsurugi clan, she plans on sending a formal letter of thanks to Oboro's village elders so the two groups can help each other rebuild. There's only one problem. Oboro was supposed to be staying in Eorzea because he was hurt, not to run his own missions. If the elders find out what he's doing, his punishment will be severe, so he sprints off to catch Yuki to stop her from blowing his cover. If he can, that is, because if the princess is anything, she is definitely fast. When you visit Oboro at the base after the incident with Princess Yuki, he is so out of his element that he doesn't even notice you come in. Yuki apparently sent a letter to his village as thanks for his help, which proves that he was lying about being too hurt to come home. The reason he's kind of out of it is because even though the elders know he's fit for duty, they told him to stay in Eorzea until they need him. Fortunately, he does have something to occupy his time. Captain Jack of the Rogues sent him a message saying some people from the east are causing problems again. That seems to happen a lot lately, so the two of you take a trip to Limsa to see what's going on. One of Jack's spies saw a group of pirates called the Krakens robbing a Garlean ship. That's not a problem. In fact, those are the only ships that pirates can legally rob. But it turns out the crew was made up of Domans who offered the cargo for safe passage into Eorzea. The captain took them up on their offer and smuggled them into the city, where they snuck off, leaving all of the cargo except for one scroll that they apparently are planning on selling on the black market. That wouldn't be a problem either if they hadn't broken their word. They said they'd leave all the cargo, but since they lied about that, there's no telling what else they're planning, so Jack wants to track them down. That requires you to hunt down some leads from your old road connections in the tavern who happen to see your Doman targets. They left a little while ago and they said they were on their way to Wineport to make the deal of a lifetime. They didn't even try to hide what they were doing, which doesn't sit well with Jack, but that's not going to stop you from heading to Wineport. When you get there, your targets have stolen a whole caravan of alcohol and are headed to the Bloodshore. It sounds strange until Jack realizes that the liquor is just something to hold them over for the ride back home. They had been trying to steal the scroll and bring it back to Kugane. You catch up to them on the Bloodshore and they attack you, a mistake that too many people make, but the scroll is nowhere to be seen, nor is there any ship nearby. The whole trip seems like a dead end until a very familiar shinobi makes his appearance in a disguise that doesn't hide him at all, since he still stands in that weird teapot pose. It's Karasu, Oboro's best frenemy, and he tells you that the people you're after are already on the way to Kugane, disguised as members of the East Aldenar Trading Company. Karasu's actually surprised that Oboro did something dishonest and lied to the elders so he could stay in Eorzea, but he finds it funny that they didn't want him to come back anyway. Oboro wants to know why Karasu's even there, but of course the man's not going to just tell him. That'd be too easy, and nothing like Karasu at all. So instead he taunts you and teleports off. With Karasu being involved, things are bound to be more complicated than you thought, so you, Jack, and Oboro head back to his hideout to discuss what to do next. Jack wants to know if Karasu is a friend or a foe, which is a question that doesn't have an answer. He could be your friend at breakfast, then try to murder you at lunch. In any case, you'll have to head to Hingashi if you want to hunt down your targets. Jack's not one to leave a job half done, but he doesn't know anything about the Far East, so it'll be up to Oboro to play the role of a guide this time. So the two of them head over to Kugane first to do some recon, and when they find something, they'll let you know. It doesn't take long for them to send you a letter letting you know that not only did Jack love the culture of the East, mainly the women, but they've got a lead on the scroll thieves, and they are dangerous, so he wants you to join them as soon as you can. When you arrive, you realize that you aren't the only person who Oboro contacted. Tsubame is there too to help on the scroll hunt, and to bring in some more help, Jack sent for Vakebe and Underfoot. They haven't made it yet, so Oboro takes the time to let you know what they found. The thieves are a group called the Garnet League, who are feared all throughout Doma. It's made up of the most dangerous members of the Doman rebellion that had been crushed by the Empire. After their loss, they turned to banditry and did everything from stealing things to murdering people. He doesn't know why they want the scroll, but they're far too dangerous to simply let them do whatever they're planning. The good news is they don't do anything to hide who they are, since everyone is too scared to mess with them anyway. They dress like the Sekisegumi, but they wear garnet colors to symbolize their group. So the four of you split up and put your stealth skills to use tracking down the bandits. You learn a good bit from eavesdropping. One important bit is that Karasu is working with the group, although they don't know who he is, and he's the reason you caught up to some of their members at the Bloodshore. So who knows what his game is this time. Either way, someone is supposed to be coming to buy the scroll, and they're paying a lot of money for it, even though they were late getting it there. Their client is supposedly extremely dangerous, and Zakuro, the woman in charge of the league, is a bit on edge because if anything happens to the scroll, their buyer will probably kill her and the entire group. And her being scared scares the entire league because Zakuro Brightblood is so crazy that she apparently dyes her hair red with the blood of her enemies. Literally. When you meet back up with the others and put together everything you all learned, it paints a pretty straightforward picture. The Garnet League stole the scroll from a Garlean warehouse for a customer who you still don't know, and was planning on sailing straight back to Kugane, but they didn't have the money to pay the Confederacy's ruby tithe, which is a toll that they make anyone pay to sail through their area. If you don't pay, they sink your ship. The League had to run from them, which caused them to get captured by the Krakens, which led to them getting brought to Lemsa, and here we are. None of that explains Karasu's involvement, but no one understands him anyway. Zakuro keeps the scroll with her at all times, and she and her people have rented a room at the Bokairo Inn with a nice hot spring. Jack found that the woman likes to stick to a schedule of grabbing tea from the tea house 3 times a day, which means there's plenty of opportunities to get the scroll from her, but you have to figure out the right way to do it. If what you do leads to a fight, then the Sekisegumi won't be happy, a problem that you don't want, so you have to be stealthy. While you plan, Vakebe and Underfoot finally show up, and of course the first thing on Vakebe's mind is food, followed closely by threats of cooking the next seagull that poops on her head. For some reason, the talk of food and bird poop gives Jack an idea. The next time Zakuro heads to the tea house, he wants Underfoot, Vakebe, and Tsubame to cause a scene to make the woman have to stop, while you climb up high and drop some fake bird poop on her head. That way, Zakuro will go to the hot springs to get cleaned up, where she'll be forced to put the scroll in a basket with her clothes to keep it from getting wet. You'll steal it, while Jack and Oboro keep her distracted in the hot springs. So last time, Tsubame stripped to distract some men. This time, Oboro and Jack will do it to distract a woman. That, ladies and gentlemen, is called equality. The plan is so ridiculously simple and complicated that it's worth a try, and it surprisingly works, letting you make off with the scroll. Oboro's eager to see the scroll, and he's surprised to find that it contains the forbidden mudra of summoning, something that was a legend used to scare children, mainly because if the summoner loses focus, the beast he summons will eat him. At one point in time, the scroll was gifted to the king of Doma to be used in a rough situation, but it was lost when the Garleans invaded and hadn't been seen since. Master Gakkai, who had led the shinobi at the time of the invasion, had thought the scroll too dangerous to use even during the fight with the Garleans, and would have rather let the nation be captured than use it. Of course, he could have already been planning his betrayal then, so there's no way of knowing if the scroll was as dangerous as he said. The Garleans would have never known what the scroll was, so the question is, who could the mysterious buyer be, and how did he even learn about the scroll in the first place? Regardless, Oboro plans on taking the scroll back to his village, but Jack promised to bring it back to the Krakens, and he always keeps his word. The two argue about who gets to keep it, but they're interrupted when Karasu decides to make another appearance, and of course he wants the scroll for his new master, and he's willing to trade it for the friends of yours who he captured, Tsubame, Vakebe, and Underfoot. You hadn't seen them since they distracted Zakuro, and now you know why. Instead of making the trade now, Karasu decides that he can have a bit of fun with you all, because he's insane, and he leaves, letting you know that he'll contact you once he's set up a little game. Going along with this game, even to save your friends, is a bad idea, so Oboro reaches out to Princess Yuki for some help, which she was so eager to do that Jack wants you to watch her before she does something stupid and makes things worse. Considering the fact that she should have been there hours ago, she might have already done that, so you and Jack search the city for her while Oboro waits around just in case she's running late. You find her hiding from Akagi because she's not supposed to be in the city, but she had to repay her debt to you whether her people wanted her to or not, so she asks you to send Akagi on a false trail so she can do what she needs to before he drags her home. You tell the poor guy that Yuki hopped on a ship to Eorzea, which makes him panic and run off to the docks. Yuki didn't want to lie to him, but after she heard about how dangerous the guy is that you're up against, she knew Akagi wouldn't let her help. So she had to do what she had to do. Oboro's her friend, and he needs her. That's all noble and stuff, but leaders have responsibilities, and they can't just run off all willy-nilly when they feel like it. Hingashi may look like a peaceful place to outsiders, but there are multiple warlords fighting for control, so it isn't hard to believe that one of them hired a shinobi to help them get an advantage over their enemies. Unfortunately, even with all of her connections, Yuki hasn't been able to figure out who's pulling the strings with this whole scroll business, which means the question of who Karasu serves is still unanswered. Of course, Karasu shows up again to interrupt your discussion. I'm getting the feeling that he just sits on rooftops watching you and waiting to make that perfect Darkwing Duck entrance. He's finally figured out what game he wants to play. It's called Kill or Watch Your Friends Get Killed. Pretty creative. Your friends are being held by the Garnet League on the Isle of Beko, and for you to win, you have to kill Sakura and her men before they kill your friends. If you do that, he's willing to let you do what you want with the scroll. See, that's why I like Karasu. He's like the Joker. His games and plans make no sense to anyone but himself until it all comes together at the end, where you have to hope your death wasn't his goal, because if it was, you never would have saw it coming. Whether he wants you dead or not, you have no choice but to play along, so you all rush off to the aisle. To make things more interesting, Karasu told Zakuro that you were coming, so being sneaky would be a little difficult. But for 3 ninja and the leader of the rogues, you get in undetected and free Vakebe. Watching you sneak around is apparently too boring for Karasu, so he attacks Oboro, alerts the gang, and turns things into an all-out battle. Still, you manage to free Underfoot before Zakuro joins in. It's easy to see why she was so feared, but there was never any doubt about who would win the battle. However, Karasu still has Tsubame, and he'll kill her if you don't give him the scroll. Because Oboro's kinda dumb, he actually thought Karasu would keep his word, but the insane shinobi tells him that the whole purpose of making promises is to break them, which is news to me, but okay. With no other choice, Oboro tosses him the scroll. He releases Tsubame, but another shinobi makes his entrance by finishing off Zakuro. His name is Hanzo, and he's the man Karasu has been working for. He gives his master the scroll, only for the man to incinerate him with a fireball jutsu. Hanzo is the leader of the Kage Kakushi clan, who, by his claims, were the first users of ninjutsu, which would explain why his fireball was strong enough to one-shot Karasu. Lucky for you all, he has business to take care of, so he leaves without attacking you. Everything that happened is a lot for Oboro to process. Not only did the forbidden scroll fall into the hands of a man who seems to hate Doman Shinobi, but he killed Karasu, who, regardless of their issues, was Oboro's friend. Tsubame does have some good news. The scroll Hanzo has only holds half of the technique. He needs the other scroll to actually use the jutsu, and the other half is in Oboro's village, and only the elders, a weird hermit, and Tsubame know of it. Oboro had no idea, but apparently the hermit never liked him much, so he never would have told him anyway. As for Hanzo's clan, Yuki's heard of them. They were well known for their battle skills, some people saying they were as strong as 1,000 lesser shinobi, but their village was wiped out by an angry warlord who killed all of the women and children, and the warriors became the prime targets on the battlefield and were wiped out one by one. It makes sense that Hanzo would want revenge for his ancestors' defeat, but it doesn't make sense why he seemed to hate the Doman Shinobi so much. Yuki has no intention of letting the man start a war in Hingashi, whatever his reasons are, so she decides to head home and find out what she can about Hanzo and his clan. Oboro wants to warn his elders because Hanzo is going to go there once he learns that he only has half of the scroll. Jack wants to come too since his mission's not done yet, but he sends Vakebe and Underfoot back home to run the Rogues Guild until he gets back. Apparently the captain's having a great time, but outsiders can't just walk into Oboro's village, so you have to wait until he goes and warns them that you're coming. He'll come back to get you if they don't decide to execute him for lying. When he comes back from the village, he seems depressed and he wanders off. When he gets like that, he usually heads to a waterfall to think, and you indeed find him nearby standing in one. He wanted more alone time, but you know him too well now for him to hide from you. Of course, Jack had expected to find him in front of the waterfall, not standing in it. What's bothering him is how he was welcomed back to the village. Instead of punishing him, they saw him as the hero who killed the evil Karasu. But Karasu wasn't evil. He actually helped Oboro find the real traitor, so he was the true hero, and even though Oboro promised to keep Karasu's secret, he feels bad about it. More so now that Karasu is gone and will be remembered as something that he wasn't. Jack decides to tell Oboro of the time you and the rogues saved Limsa, and Malala of the Yellow Jackets took credit for it. Jack was kinda salty about it, but he works in the shadows. He can't take glory for his actions, otherwise it would make his work harder. And while Malala wasn't a hero at the time, being seen as one has made her work to be one for real. Jack left out the part where he stole the earrings off of the woman's unconscious body, but the point of the story was to help Oboro realize his role in Karasu's story. He was the hero who could be visible. Hearing that makes him feel better, which is good because it's time to get back to work. Tsubame shows up and she's quite surprised to see Oboro standing around a campfire in his underwear, but she's apparently done as he asked. Since he went back to the village, he's been trying to find out why Hanzo has a grudge against the shinobi who were raised and trained under one of the original shinobis, Sasuke. Apparently Sasuke's past was so secret that even the elders know little about it. The only person who might know something is the old hermit, so Oboro had Tsubame contact Master Kamui so he could arrange a meeting. Since you are Oboro's student, that makes you an heir to Sasuke's legacy, and gives you the right to see the hermit and learn the history too. Jack's coming too because he's bored, and the hermit doesn't care as long as Tsubame comes. The hermit knows what you want him to tell you, and while he seems like an idiot, he actually remembers the story. A long time ago during the Age of Strife, there was a man named Hanzo I who led the Kage Kakushi clan, and he made a powerful summoning mudra. A lot of warlords wanted it, but Hanzo wouldn't sell it. It was only meant to be used as a last line of defense, and he wrote all of his knowledge down on one scroll and hid it. Later, an injured man showed up to the village, having fled from a tyrant in Doma. The people healed the man, and after hearing the story, Hanzo got his student Sasuke to take the scroll across the sea and free the people of Doma. He wiped out the army in seconds, and Doma was freed, but Sasuke decided to stay in Doma and make his own village to train the Domans in the art of ninjutsu, so no one else would be able to conquer them. After seeing what the jutsu could do, he was so scared of it that he split the scroll in half and sealed part of it away while giving the other piece to the king of Doma. Sasuke wasn't a traitor, but Hanzo's descendants didn't know about the mission. They just thought Sasuke stole his master's scroll and formed his own village. The information was helpful, which the hermit is happy about, but he'd rather never see Oboro again. Suzume can come by whenever she wants. Before you leave, Yuki shows up with some bad news. Hanzo's clan has gathered its forces and are getting ready to march on Doma, so you all rush out to get ready to defend the village. The army's numbers are massive, but there's no sign of Hanzo among their ranks, meaning he's probably going to attack from your blind spot. So while you're all fighting his troops, Hanzo will likely circle around in the Azim Steppe and come up behind you all. The problem is they can't spare the soldiers to guard that area since they're already outnumbered, but if Hanzo's trying to catch you all by surprise, he's probably coming alone. So Oboro sends you to watch for the man. Jack hadn't planned on getting caught in a battle between two ninja clans, but if Hanzo shows up, he wants you to steal that half of the scroll for him. Hanzo does show up, disguised as the old hermit, and he laughs about how weak the Doman shinobi are since they can only seem to use 3 mudras. 4 were taught in his clan, and they used the 4th to create an army of clones so it would look like they had a larger army than they did. That drew away almost everyone from the village and let him turn into the old man to take what belonged to him. Now he has both parts of the scroll, and he's going to use it to wipe out the Domans, after he tests it on you. He breaks out the scrolls and casts the summoning jutsu, only to summon an army of bunny rabbits. Out of the shadows comes Karasu, very much alive since he used the same clone technique to keep himself out of harm's way. And of course he'd switch the scroll for a fake, because he would never give something so powerful to someone like Hanzo. Even though the man killed a fake, Karasu still takes it personally, so he decides, just for this once, to fight by your side and show you the real difference between him and Oboro. Hanzo has a few very powerful techniques, including making himself really big, which only gives you a bigger target. A big mistake when fighting both you and Karasu. The man never had a chance. With it all over, Karasu applauds your skills at Oboro's expense and heads off, wanting you to not ruin his reputation by telling anyone that he helped you. Of course, you immediately tell Oboro and the others when they show up. Oboro's happy to hear that his friend's alive, until he realizes that if Karasu had gave Hanzo a fake scroll, then he still has the real one. So it's back to Eorzea to once again hunt down Karasu, while Jack takes the fake scroll back to the pirates, because if it could fool a shinobi, it could definitely fool a few pirates. After Karasu made off with half of the scroll, Oboro has been hard at work trying to track the shinobi down, and after a lot of hunting, he's found the man. But finding him was the easy part. Stealing the scroll backs was going to be rough, which is why it's good that you showed up. Oboro needs your help for his mission to succeed, and busy or not, you always have time to help a friend. Karasu has come back to Eorzea, and he's been living in a secluded place in Lenosha called Hermit's Hovel, so you and Oboro head there to set up this plan for getting the scroll back. Karasu's been sticking to a very consistent routine, and he keeps the scroll with him at all times, except for when he takes a bath, something he does at the exact same time every day. Oboro had thought of repeating what you did with Zakuro and just taking the scroll while Karasu was bathing, but as soon as the man goes into the bathroom, he comes back out fully dressed. He does it so fast that there's no chance of him getting the scroll, which means he's likely summoning one of his clones to make sure he never leaves the scroll unguarded. Since you're there, Oboro's plan is pretty simple. He's going to invite his old friend to share a few drinks, and while he keeps him occupied, you'll sneak in and take the scroll. It's a simple plan, and simple is usually better. In this case, it actually works. Oboro shares drinks with Karasu, and you sneak into the unguarded house. He has a lot of books and stuff in there, but there are no clones of himself or traps, so you find the scroll and sneak off with it. When Oboro finally leaves Karasu, he's super excited to have finally outsmarted his rival. But it won't take long for Karasu to figure out what happened, so the two of you head back to Obero's hideout before the shinobi can track you down. Obero's still celebrating his victory, and he's so loud that Jack hears him from outside. The rogue leader had come by to get the two of you to come celebrate your victory in the scroll hunt with a feast in Limsa. Of course, no one throws a feast quite like the rogues, so you head off to join in the festivities and get some food before Vakebe eats it all. Obero's so excited that he keeps bragging about how incredible it was that he outsmarted a shinobi of Karasu's skill. He's acting nothing like his usual serious self, which makes sense when another Obero comes running up in his underwear. It doesn't take long for you all to realize which one is the real Obero, and since the game is over, Karasu transforms back into himself before turning into a crow and flying away. You very well can't leave Obero standing around in public in his underwear, so he borrows a very, let's just call it unique outfit from Jack, and he reveals that during his distraction of Karasu, he'd ended up passing out drunk and had woke up in his underwear. When he made it back to his hideout, all of his clothes were gone, and to top things off, Karasu once again had the scroll since you gave it to him when you thought he was Obero. Which is honestly both a good and a bad thing. It's bad because the crazy shinobi still has part of the summoning mudra, and it's good because at least Obero has something to do as his hunt for Karasu continues. This concludes the story of the ninja, at least for now. If you enjoyed this video, give it a like, ding the notification bell and subscribe. And if you want to buy me a coffee for my work, sign up to become a member of the channel. Until next time guys, later.